Okay guys, our decline, average picker. So if you just watched the last video, I was doing some pin tests of those spiky pins, and I think I've now settled on which pins I want in the lock. I've not decided on an order, and I've not cut a key yet, but I thought I would just do a little video here. It's just kind of a first impression, because I've got all the pins in there of what it's maybe going to be like. A key blank does fit in there. Well, for the most part. And so yeah, I don't have a key cut for it, but I don't anticipate any problems. The key does run through the core smoothly when the core is out and the pins are in it, so I don't think I'm going to have any issues. So just kind of a little first impressions video of my first challenge lock. I'm going to have to reorganize the pins. I'm already concentrating a little bit, that's good. Okay, let's see. Counter rotation. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. It is funny, I hate shimming locks, and of course I do a challenge lock that needs a shim. My intentions for this first lock, I'm not actually meeting them. At some point I had to realize I had to work not with my idea, but with the tools and the skill that I have. I think I was a little bit too ambitious initially, because I know I had talked about it. The LSDA has holes drilled out in the bottom, and I was hoping to use those to kind of stabilize the core a little bit. And I think it's possible. It's not something I'm capable of doing. And so what I decided to do was to try to use some of the sloppiness of the LSDA to my advantage. So there's not a whole lot of clear feedback, and things kind of just, some of the key pins will slip above that shear line without being noticed. And then what I'm probably going to do, after I get this one all set, is I'll take some of my leftover pins, and I'm just going to probably throw them in another lock and just make a second challenge lock really quickly without much thought to it, and see what happens. A little bit of rotation. I gotta say, I like those spike pins, I think, a little bit, because they grip constantly, and so you're always having to move back and forth on them. Honestly, as long as I break the 4-minute mark with this thing, I think I'll be kind of happy with it. Okay. Spool is counter-rotating. We just slid past 4 minutes. Okay, good. I think that's the 5th one that's binding. A little crunchy. Let's recock it. So, one of the interesting things with those two spikes in there, you end up with, I've got several pins that initially want to hang up and give you some feedback. So it's got kind of, it feels like there's almost 3 starting points in the lock, if that makes any sense. When you put tension on it, there's like 3 that you kind of feel like they want the attention. And I kind of like that. I don't remember which ones I put in which chambers. I just kind of selected the 5 and tested each one and then just tossed them in there. Okay, I'm trying to get a clean lift on that. I think we're on pin 4. I've never actually made a key before. I tried to cut one. I think that's going to be an interesting process to try to figure out. Jogging that one pin a little bit. Okay, well, I don't want this video to run too long. So my first impression of my own lock, I'm kind of happy with it. It is more or less doing what I kind of hoped it was going to do. And it's behaving pretty much how I hoped it would behave. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I will get this thing picked back open. I mean, I kind of have no choice at this point. I may shim it open if I want to just hurry the process along. And then I'm going to sit down and try to figure out how to get a key cut for it. And see what happens. Okay, guys, well, I don't really know. This, I mean, you know, it's kind of a weird video to do. But seeing as how this was my first one, I just thought, oh, some kind of documentation put together on my assembling it and stuff. So we will get it open. We will get the pins rearranged in a slightly better order. Because I know I said I threw them in kind of randomly, but I think right now they're just kind of running through the lock. So my highest lifts are in the front and my shortest lifts are in the back right now. So yeah, we'll get that open and we'll try to get a key cut for it. Wish me luck on that and we'll go from there. All right, guys, see ya. Okay, so trying to make a key here. I just figured I will just kind of keep documenting what I'm doing. I kind of know the basics behind it. I've seen a couple videos here and there on doing this stuff, but I'm kind of just making this up also as I go along. So, I mean, obviously one of the first things you need to know is where the key lines up with the key pins. So what I decided to do, and we know we can scar these, but I was having trouble seeing it. So what I did was I took a magic marker and I just put a good little black line on there on the top of the key blank. Slid it in and then used one of these little jewelry files and I just went through the chamber and just scraped and scored at that magic marker in there. figuring I would scrape it away, and that would give me a pretty clear indication of where things were. And you can see that has kind of worked. So now it's just filing them, and honestly, I was hoping I was going to think of some way to do this a little quicker, at least, but got some ideas, but I thought, I'll just do this one kind of the old-fashioned way maybe, and chisel at it slowly but surely. And so that's what I've been doing, just slowly filing away at this thing. I've got to say, on the list of things that I like about making challenge locks, this is quickly going to the bottom of the list. I like making the pins. I like thinking about how the pins are going to interact with the lock. When it comes down to actually filing on the key, it is not so much fun. The main file I've been using is this. It's a little jewelry guy. I don't know if I can get the tip into focus. He's mostly flat on one end, and then slightly curved angled at the other. I started using more of a kind of squared off and triangle shaped ones, but what I found was they were cutting too finely deep in, and it's probably just the size of my files. So I was probably going to end up the cut being deep, but the pin sitting up further than all the way down, and it was just going to take a lot of finagling around, and I was going to end up probably with stray deep cuts, and just figured it wasn't worth it. I'd go to something a little bit wider. So there we go. That is me so far making pins. Okay, so we now have something that sort of almost looks like a key. It's pretty rough looking. Put it in there with the pins. It's just about there. It is actually just enough with a bit of wiggling. It fits in there and it's pretty tight. So, but the key does not go in terribly smoothly. So, this is that nerve-wracking part, I gotta tell you, because I'm afraid to take too much off of anything. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down with the Dremel, and I'm just going to touch these edges. Not much, just probably kind of a bzz, bzz across them, and try it again and see what we get. So it's getting there. So I hit it with the Dremel, and it's looking pretty decent. The key's not too bad. It's not bouncing everything too horribly. It's going in much better, and it does hang a little bit on that shear line. Just a clip, so maybe just a little bit of deburring on it. Bring it down just a tad. I think that third pin, third and the fifth pin are still sitting just a tad high, depending on how much wiggle is in the key. It looks like that first one could go a little high too if I wasn't careful. I'll probably just take a hair more off of it, and we'll have ourselves a key. Okay, almost forgot to put the shim in. But so this is the moment of truth, guys. We're going to put the whole thing together and lock it up and see if the key works. And it'll pretty much be it. It'll probably come apart one more time just to do a bit of polishing on it and smooth out any wrinkles. kind of nerve-wracking, you know. Let's see what happens. I know I can always shim it back open if I have to. It's locked up good and sound. Try our key for the first time, really. Key goes in. Oh, it's crunchy. Yeah, okay, so the key is definitely hanging up, and I know what's doing it. It's those little spiky pins. Yeah, I don't think those spikes are going to give me a whole lot of forgiveness. But the key does come out, so that's good, right? But yeah, that little spike is not going to be forgiving on this key being too rough. So, all right, I'll have to get that worked out. But yeah, I think our little lock is pretty much almost ready to go out at this point. Give it a little pick, see what happens. I'm really hoping that little spike is not hanging up because I took just a tad too much off. It's not really going to take much for that one to catch. But it feels pretty decent picking at it. Pretty much doing what I'd like it to do. So I don't think it's going to be too easy. It's not going to fall open on me, so that's the best I can hope for. All right, guys, I will try to get this key issue straightened out. That's kind of exciting, though. I got to tell you, like, I was not expecting much out of this. But yeah, we will try to get that straight. Once the back goes on there, it'll actually turn. It goes in and out. It goes in and out smoothly. I am quite excited. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye. Okay, so I thought I would just do a little tiny supplement here because I have now fixed the problem. What was happening was the little spiky pin, right, was paired up with a key pin that I had pulled out of a old Quickset. And Quickset, these old Quickset pins, I don't know if you can really tell, they have a slight taper, a little bevel on the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to pop this in. So even though the pin is sitting flush, that little taper causes a little lip around the side there. Okay? And that little lip was just enough that the pin was wedging in just a tad on the lip and was not allowing it to turn. I thought that might have been the case, or I thought that could happen. But then looking at it, I thought, it's probably going to be enough that, you know, just a decent twist and it'll bump right over and past that. The answer is no, it will not. So I lucked out. I had one other pin that just barely fit in there. It was a little large, so it is now ground down. So it is little bit of a lip there. I'll have to take a tad more off of it, but it is sitting flush now with the lock, and it should work. We're going to load it up one more time, double check it, and we should be good to go.